Good evening, students. Welcome to 10th Standard Social online class. Students, we are learning Economics Unit 1, Gross Domestic Product and its growth and introduction. In our previous class, we have learned about the three sectors of GDP, that is primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. And we also learn about what is economic growth and what is economic development and difference between economic growth and economic development. Up to this we have completed. Today we are going to see about there are some factors which support our Indian development. What are the factors which support the Indian development? First, a fast growing population of working age is an important factor. India consists of 130 crores people here. Among them, 700 million people they were under the age of 35, that is working age. This is a first factor for our development. There are 700 million Indians under the age of 35 and the demographics, that is population, look good for Indian growth in the next 20 years at least. India is experiencing demographic transition that has increased the share of working age population from 58% to 64% over the last 2 decades. So India possesses a high human potential resources. It is very important factor for our development. Second point, India has a strong legal system. Our Indian government, they enacted so many laws for the improvement of our economy and many English language speakers here. This has been a key to attracting inward investment from companies such as those specializing in information technology. So we occupy fourth place in information technologies, in space, like that. So here many people, English speaking people here, it is very useful for us to invest foreign companies here. India's economy has successfully developed in highly advanced and attractive clusters of business in the technology space. That means in the business of technology space, India attracts the highly developed countries. For example, witness the rapid emergence of Bangalore as a global hub in software business. External economies of scale have deepened their competitive advantages in many related industries. Now we will see Human Development Index. What is means Human Development Index? In 1990, Mehboob ul Haq, he was a Pakistan economist. At the United Nations, he coined this word Human Development Index. He introduced Human Development Index. It is a composite index of life expectancy at birth, adult literacy rate, and standard of living measured as a logarithmic function of GDP, adjusted to purchasing power parity. So human development is a composite index of life expectancy of a person, adult literacy rate, and their standard of living. All these three things measured in a logarithmic way. This is we call Human Development Index. India climbed one spot to 130 out of 189 countries in the latest Human Development ranking released today by the United Nations Development Programme UNDP. Between 1990 and 2017, India's Human Development Index value it increased from 0.427 to 0.640, an increase of nearly 50%. It is an indicator of the country's remarkable achievement in lifting millions of people out of poverty. So it increases the standard of living and also increases the adult literacy rate. Not only that, it also increases the life expectancy of birth. Now we will see the growth of GDP and economic policies. How GDP level growing in our country and what are the economic policies introduced by our Indian government. Many economic policies have been framed by the government of India since independence for increasing the rate of economic growth and economic development. The important economic policies are there are three policy: agriculture policy, industrial policy, and new economic policy. These are the three policies introduced by our Indian government to improve the economic growth and economic development. First, we will see agriculture policy. It is a set of government decision and action. So, agriculture policy is a government decision and action relate to local agriculture. Domestic agriculture means local agriculture, and it also import of foreign agricultural product. Some overarching themes, that is very old themes, include risk management and adjustment, economic stability, natural resources and environmental sustainability, research and development, and market access for domestic commodities. So this is the agriculture policies. Now we will see some important agriculture policies are price policy, set up uniform price, and land reform policy. This means our Indian government distributing the agriculture land to landless poor peasants. They are distributing land to landless poor farmers. Then green revolution means achieving a spectacular increase of production in agriculture. That here we call green revolution. Then irrigation policy by introducing sprinkling irrigation, drip irrigation, etc. Food policy and agriculture labor policy and cooperative policy. These are the agriculture policies introduced by our government to improve agriculture in our country. Second one, industrial policy. Industrial development is a very important aspect of any economy. It gave job opportunity to the people, it create employment, and it also promote research and development that leads to modernization and ultimately makes the economy self-sufficient. If a country develop the industrial, first it attain modernization and it also attain self-sufficient in economy. In fact, industrial development even boost up other sector of economy like agriculture sector, new farming technology, and the service sector. So the industrial sector, it also giving support to promote the agriculture sector, primary sector and tertiary sector. It is also closely related to the development of trade. If the industry is developed, automatically the trade also developed. Then it will lead to increase of GDP. GDP increase, the economic growth will be there and economic development will be there. Our Indian government, they passed several industrial policies for the promotion of industries. Since 1948, industrial policy on large scale industries, that is large scale industries like textile industrial policy, sugar industries policy, price policies of industrial growth, small scale industrial policy and industrial labor policy. So these are the industrial policy introduced by our government for the promotion of industries. Third policy, new economic policy. The economy of India had undergone policy in the beginning of 1990s. This new model of economic reform is commonly known as LPG. That means liberalization, privatization and globalization. These economic reforms had influenced the overall economic growth of the country in a significant manner. So our government, they introduced new economic reforms in the year 1991. According to the new economic reforms, they introduced three words in our economy, that is LPG. Liberalization, that means it remove all rules and regulations in the economy. Then privatization, transforming all the public sector into private sector. Globalization, integrating or linking our Indian economy with the world economy. This is we call liberalization, privatization and globalization. Now we will see gross national happiness. The term gross national happiness that was coined, first introduced in the year 1972 during an interview by a British journalist for the Financial Times. So it was a name of a newspaper at Bombay airport. When the King of Bhutan, Jigme Singhi Wangchuk, said gross national happiness is the more important than gross national product. In 2011, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution, Happiness, towards a holistic approach to development. It urging member nation, it urged all member nations to follow the example of Bhutan and measure happiness and well-being, and calling happiness is a fundamental human goal. So all government they have to set their policy to improve the health care and the happiness of their people. The four pillars of human national happiness are: first, sustainable and equitable socio-economic development; environmental conservation, we have to protect the environment, and we have to preserve and promote our culture; and good governance. These are the four pillars of human national happiness. The 9 domains of human national happiness are: psychological well-being. The people of a country should have a very good psychology condition, health condition, and they have to use the time in a proper way. Education, cultural diversity and resilience, good governance, community vitality, ecological diversity and resilience, and living standard. So these are the important 9 domains of gross national happiness. Students, we have completed first lesson in economics. So this is very important lesson. Definitely one detail and 2 marks will come for exam. Now we will move to second lesson in economic. Now we are going to see economic unit 2, globalization and trade. This globalization we have learned in the first lesson. In this lesson we are going to know the meaning of globalization and the history of globalization and how the trade or emerge, and traders in South India, historical perspective, and the evolution of growth of multinational corporation. Introduction. Liberalization, privatization and globalization have become a much talked of subjects among the politicians, economics and businessmen in modern days. Already we know that one, during the period of 1990, our Indian government, they introduced new economic policies and they introduced the word LBG, that means liberalization, privatization and globalization. First we will see what does mean globalization. Globalization is the integration, uniting or joining of a country with the world economy. Basically, globalization signifies a process of internationalization plus liberalization. So our Indian economy is integrated, unite with the foreign economy, world economy. This is we call globalization. You see here, all the countries they are linking with together. This is we call globalization. Now we will see the history of globalization. The term globalization was introduced by Professor Theodore Levitt. Note this one important one-word question. The globalization was introduced by whom? Professor Theodore Levitt. The historical background of globalization can be discussed on 3 stages. We can divide the history of globalization into 3. How it emerged. Stage 1, archaic globalization, that is a very old age globalization. Proto-globalization, that is middle globalization. Modern globalization, that is present globalization. So we can divide the globalization into 3 stages: archaic, proto-globalization and modern globalization. Now we will see archaic globalization. It was during the period of Indus Valley civilization, like that. Andrew Gunder Frank argued that a form of globalization has been in existence since the rise of trade link between Sumer and Indus Valley civilization. So the Indus Valley civilization people, that is Indian people, they had trade link with the Sumerian people during the period of 3rd millennium BC. An early form of globalized economics and culture known as archaic globalization that was existed during the period of Hellenistic age. Hellenist people, that is people of Greece. So during the Greek civilization, that archaic globalization that was existed. The Greece people, they had the trade link with the overall other countries. They had trade link with India, they had trade link with the African people, Egyptian people, like that. An early form of globalization in the trade link between the Roman Empire, Parthian Empire, and the Han dynasty. Han dynasty is nothing but China. Made the commercial link between these powers. It inspired the development of Silk Road. The China people during the period of Han dynasty, the Han king, they opened the Silk Road to develop archaic globalization trade. The Islamic age was also an important early stage of globalization. The advent of Mongol Empire from Mongolia, though destabilizing to the commercial centers of the Middle East and China, they greatly facilitated travel along the Silk Road. So through that Silk Road, they traveled and they came to India and they came to many places to capture. This pre-modern phase of global exchange are sometimes known as archaic globalization. Students, see this map. The brown color is the Silk Road, this is a land route, and blue color is sea route. So through this land route, they developed a trade link with other nations. This is we call archaic globalization. The second one is proto-globalization. The next phase is known as proto-globalization. It was characterized by the rise of maritime European empires. All the European powers, they began to find some sea route to India and Asia. This is we call maritime European trade. In the year 16th and 17th centuries AD, the first persons were Portuguese and then Spanish Empire, the Dutch and British Empire. In 17th centuries, globalization became private business phenomena like British East India Company that was founded in the year 1600. Very important GK question. Note this one. This is described as the first multinational company, followed by first Dutch East India Company that was established in the year 1602. They were established. So this is we call proto-globalization that was flourished during the period of 16th and 17th centuries. Although European powers, they discovered sea route to India and Asia for the purpose of having spice trade with our nation. For that things they established their company here. First British East India Company that was established in the year 1600 and followed by the Dutch East India Company established, and then the French also established their French East India Company in the year 1664. Now we will see the modern globalization. The 19th century witnessed the advent of globalization approaching its modern form. Between globalization in the 19th and in the 20th century, there are significant differences. There are two main points. One is the global trade increased centuries as well as the capital investment and economy. And another one is global trade in the 20th century shows a high share of trade in merchant production, a growth of trade in services and the rise of production and trade by multinational firms. So during 19th and 20th centuries, the foreign powers, they established their trade link here for main 2 points. One is global trade, another one is to have a high share of trade in merchant production. Students, up to this we conclude the lesson. The remaining part will be seen in the next class. Today I will give some home assignment. You will learn and write and study well for the midterm exam. Thank you.